Hello and welcome to another episode of Dr. Davies showing you nothing. This morning, it is 4:15 in the morning, 21 degrees centigrade. That is probably about 40, 50, 60, 75 degrees Fahrenheit. And we're on an adventure up the west coast of South Africa. Join me. Good accent? Bad accent? Thought I'd be more inclusive to my enormous American audience, my huge following. It's been a while since I made a video. I'm going up the west coast again. I made a video about the west coast before. Didn't see anything. That isn't a big surprise. This time, though, what will we find? Wait and see. I'm traveling up the west coast of South Africa. I've done this before, and I've made a video of this before. It wasn't very exciting. I think it mostly focused on termites, because termite mounds don't run away. I don't think this will be much more exciting than the previous video, but I thought I would show you a little bit more of the surroundings, because South Africa is a pretty diverse place. It's got a lot of different habitats, a lot of different biomes, a lot of different ecosystems in quite a small area. So you see a lot of the savanna bushveld or the Combretum woodland savanna up in Djuma, on the northeast coast of South Africa. Well, not really coast, but on the Lowveld. But there's a lot of different types of habitats you can find in South Africa, and they're all really, really quite interesting in their own way. So up the west coast, it's relatively dry. So there's far fewer bushes and a lot lower rainfall. So it's a completely different, more arid habitat. In the middle of South Africa, you've got the Karoo, which is also the semi-arid area, mostly dominated by tiny shrubs and little stones. There's a few birds and maybe some springbok dotted here and there. Down south, around the Cape, you've got the fynbos, which is the most speciose floral kingdom in the world, which is exciting. In the middle, in the Free State, I guess it's mostly grassland. What else have we got? We've got Albany thickets around the Eastern Cape. We've got savannas. We've got forests along the Eastern Cape, well, the Eastern Coast, around Knysna. So there's, and we've got desert, true desert. I'm actually on my way through a true desert. Maybe by tomorrow, and it's a pretty desolate place, but it's fascinating. There might be some interesting birds that some of you might not have seen before. You might see something along the way. Just pulled over. See what I can show you. I'm in an area. Let me turn down Tristan. I'm in an area just south of a place called Piketberg. Might be able to see out the window. This is a quarry. And what this quarry is a quarry for cement. Because this whole area, just before Piketberg, the sediment has got a very high lime content. A lot of calcium in this underlying rock layers. And they use the lime, obviously, to make the cement, but there's also a good amount of hard rocks to form the aggregate. So this whole area is a pretty fantastic place for all the ingredients you need to make good concrete and cement. This is the Piccaninny's Kloof Pass. And this is a little bit of the Western Cape. And the trucks, my favorite. You can see this hard layer of sandstone forming these mountains, and this is a Table Mountain sandstone supergroup. You can see in between the mountains everywhere that it's been eroded away and left these flat areas, which in quite a lot of the southwestern Cape we've obviously converted it all to agriculture. Rhabdomus pomelio. You can see this unconformity of where the old riverbed used to be. This mud layer used to be the old riverbed, and now it's cut down to kind of this badlands looking dry area. I'm surprised this is the Salt River, which means Salt River. I'm surprised it's got some water in. It's quite nice to see. Most of the soil types along this area, actually from the stretch all the way down to Cape Town up to the coast and along to the Namibian border, it's all metamorphic rock. So it's sedimentary rock that's been altered in some way, either by pressure or heat, to form metamorphic rock. I'm in a little town called Bitterfontein. Actually, this is a mesquite. This is an invasive. But you can eat these seed pods. Now I was talking about metamorphic rock up the coast, and you can see here some pretty nice granite. Some big granite blocks from this area. All this metamorphic rock. It's good for making granite, but you can see this is kind of a greyish color. But over here you can see that one's a little bit more pink. Now I think what's going on here, this is obviously a distribution point for granite blocks, because they've got enough of their own. But I don't think this pink one is from here. I think these grey ones are grey granite from this area, but this lovely pink stuff oh, I should have brought some water to pour on. It would look very nice. I think this pink stuff is from further inland towards Pofadder, which is quite interesting to see how the metamorphic rock along this western edge of South Africa is being used obviously for granite, marble, countertops, these kind of things. I guess this is turning into a bit of a geological field trip rather than a biological one. Oh, well. These rocks don't run away, they're easier to find. So you can see the landscape has changed again quite a lot. You look at this These mountains, they're quite striking. What they are is granite and gneiss, or gneiss, it's rather nice rock, which is metamorphic again. And it characterizes this area. This is a little town called Kamiskruin. And it's made up of these Mongolian granites and gneiss, which are about 1.5 billion years old. But I stopped because this is the first quiver tree that I've seen on the drive north. So this used to be called Allodichotoma. I think it's Aleodendron dichotomum now. Dichotoma meaning you see how the branches, they kind of split into two. Dichotoma, easy way to remember. And they're called quiver trees. It's quite a nice one. They're called quiver trees because the local sand people, they used to hollow out the branches and use the branches as quivers for their arrows. They also used to be used, I think they used to hollow them out and use them to store food in as well, like a wild refrigerator. The last time I stood here, I saw a pair of black eagles, or Vero's eagles. And I'm not entirely sure why I thought they would be here again. Because they are not. So here's a nice grove of kukurboom, or quiver trees. Aleodendron. Have to say it a lot to remember that it's no longer Allodichotoma. Aleodendron dichotomum. Usually on the north-facing slopes. You can see some further up there. That is a north-facing slope. You can see some in the background. Yeah, this is going to be a really quick in and out, because I have to get back to town fairly quickly for an appointment. But I thought I'd pop in here to Huchap Nature Reserve to show you some of the more arid adapted species, if we can see anything. That's what this place is set up to conserve, this kind of semi-arid environment and ecosystem. One of the animals that I'm particularly interested in showing you is the hemspock, or oryx. It's arid adapted. You'll see it's got white belly like the springbok. We might see a springbok as well, hopefully. And that white belly helps it reflect the heat coming off the ground. There's another adaptation that they have for these dry areas, and one that's not very well understood by a lot of people. So I went on a game drive and I was told that there's a network of capillaries near the brain, between the nose and the brain, which cool air sucked in through the nose cools the blood down and protects the brain to stop it overheating when the weather's hot, or when the animal runs around, or something that causes the body temperature increase. This mechanism will protect the brain from overheating. But that's not how it works at all. So there is a network of capillaries called a Richtersveld, or carotid rete. Now, I've gone through this before in one of my videos, but even since I've made that video, someone has told me the same story again. No, this thing stops the brain from overheating and stops it basically destroying itself when it gets too hot. But the brain isn't even the most heat sensitive organ in the body. It's part of the digestive system, is far more sensitive to heat than the body, or than the brain. And what this thing does is it does help cool the blood that's going through it. So there's a counter current exchange system which the cool air does cool the blood down in this network, but it cools down a very specific portion of the brain, the hypothalamus, which controls sweating. So what it does is it allows the body to actually heat up to a point beyond which it normally would be allowed to without sweating. So the system is actually there to conserve water. So the body gets really, really hot, but this system near the nose cools down the blood going to this little section of the brain and says, hey, don't worry about it. We're actually a lot cooler than you think. So, and it's basically tricking the brain to prevent it from turning on all the sweat glands and making the animal pant and lose a lot of heat and a lot of water in the process of losing that heat. This is why I came here. Beautiful gemsbok. Both males and females have these long scimitar-like horns. I think they look quite horse-like. You can see the white belly to help it reflect the heat radiating off the ground. And they can run and run and run and run for miles without, seemingly without getting too hot. Over the desert sand, it's quite a nice thing to see. And they do use these horns for fighting, and they also use them for fending off some of the predators. Because the horns are so long, they can actually reach their buttocks and poke things that are grabbing onto their butts. So there's quite a few around. You can see they're quite athletic looking things. See their nice black and white markings on their faces. I wonder if that one's just a bit large or if it's pregnant. It does have thinner horns. You can see females have thinner horns than the males. But are pretty striking colors. Yeah, jeepers, she does look pregnant. You can see a meander of the Orange River. But if you look in the background, you can see some little heaps, spoil heaps. And those little mounds are man-made. Those are diamond mines. So as the Orange River flows, it comes past Kimberley and pretty diamond-rich areas, and it picks up diamonds. And it's been doing that for thousands and thousands of years. And as this river meanders, the diamonds get deposited along the route. And as the meanders change over time, the river course slightly changes, and the river flows in a different route. If you dig up those areas, you can find all the diamonds that have been deposited over time. That's what these people are doing. And the average size diamond that they find is about 1 carat. But we're slowly running out of diamonds. We've been doing this for a while. And some of these mines are no longer profitable. And this river will flow to the Orange River mouth, Ranyamund. And they've just opened up the town. It used to be a mining town, just opened it up for tourism in the last couple of months. Because they've also slowly run out of diamonds. And as this river was depositing diamonds into the sea was washing them back up onto the coast and basically sorting it for them. So if they would just find areas where the river used to flow and dig in there, in those old channels, they'll be able to find the diamonds that have been deposited over thousands and thousands of years. But there's been over time there's been some pretty good stories. I'll go past Alexander Bay, another mining town, on the way back south, and I'll tell you a pretty fun story about that. You hear that sound? Sound of impending doom. When I sort that out, thought we should stop and have a look at this rock. This wonderful thing. This is a mafic rock made up of magnesium, mostly giving it this black color. Mafic, iron, manganese. Mafic lavas. Some of these lavas are along this coast, along the coast and along this area. Underlying lava layers are about 3 billion years old. But these dunes, I really like these windblown dunes. These are really nice. I know some of you love geckos. I love geckos. I know some of you love geckos because you told me you love geckos. And I love geckos too. There's a really cool gecko that lives in this kind of habitat called the Namakwa web-footed gecko. It's got webbed feet, so it can run on the sand, and so it can bury itself. It's almost see-through, it's nocturnal. Very small, very cute, look it up. It's called Pachydactylus rangii. It's, this area is Harib, lowland desert. Which Qarib is the Orange River, just over these dunes, and it only receives about 45 millimeters of rain a year, but it gets a lot of fog, and 60-70 days of fog a year. And I'm sure you've seen those videos of the gecko licking its eyeballs, licking the dew off its eyeballs. They've got huge eyeballs because they're nocturnal. Also lick a lot of leaves, lick the dew and the fog off the leaves. I need to sort out this tire. It's a problem with coming to these places. Being in the desert alone, gotta know what you're doing. You could be in big trouble. People often ask me what you wear when you're out in the bush. It's pretty hot, it's about 36 degrees centigrade, 100 degrees Fahrenheit maybe. And I wear this these fancy new materials, technical shirts, quick wick. If you sweat, the sweat gets wicked away very quickly. Breathable, long sleeve, stop you getting sunburnt when you have to change a tire. And a buff. Very useful. You can hear the wind is coming up. Stops wind going into your face. A very cool looking cowboy hat, not just for a fashion statement, but keeps the sun off my neck. And the holes let the wind go through. Now, let me sort this out. Alexander Bay, because there was a mining town for diamonds. There's some guys that were arrested coming up with different ideas of how to smuggle diamonds out of the mines, and it turns out that they trained a whole bunch of racing pigeons to act like carrier pigeons, I guess. Tied little diamonds around their feet and sent them home, told them to fly out, but they got caught out. Welcome to Port Nolloth. Now, there's a book, an excellent book about birding in South Africa called Bird Finder. This fence line is supposedly demarcates well, what it's really for is to show you where the diamond mining area is and where you're not allowed to go. But it also has been identified as an area where two lark species, the boundary between two lark species, not the actual fence, obviously the birds can fly over, but Barlow's lark to the north has been recently split from the Karoo lark to the south, split into different species. Barlow's lark has got less striping on its flanks. There's a book, it's an excellent book by Callan Cohen, he's a fantastic guy, and Claire Spotterswood. She must be the best ornithologist in the world at the moment. A fantastic biologist. I think she's at Cambridge University now. Apologies, Claire, if you're not. But they say if you come out of Port Nolloth and look for this fence, you should be able to find Barlow's lark. It's a great book. If you're coming to South Africa and you like your birds, definitely buy that book. It tells you specifics like this, which makes birding fantastic. Fantastically easy to plan a route and find some really great birds to tick off your list. This is kind of a hybridization zone, so the two might interbreed in this area, but you should be able to identify some Barlow's larks amongst some of the hybrids if you manage to see them. But if there's hybrids, I hear you shouting at me through the computer. If there's hybrids, how can there be different species? There's over 20 different species concepts. So just because they can produce fertile offspring doesn't mean that they are the same species. A lot of different species of ducks are capable of hybridizing. It's a terrible problem with the mallard duck that comes down and interbreeds with our yellow-billed ducks and causes these hybrids, which are fertile, but no one would question that a mallard duck is a different species to a yellow-billed duck. So just because they can interbreed doesn't mean that they are the same species. It depends on what taxa, what type of animal you're looking at, depending on which the biologists that are studying them, what their favorite species concept is, and then they just run with that. So you'll get things that, you get splitters and lumpers, they call them. biologists in certain taxa like to split up subspecies into full species if you can just recognize the difference between them, and you get lumpers who just say, these are all the same thing. Depending on which taxa you're looking at, which type of animal the biologists in question are studying. I'm going to try and find one, but it's quite windy, and the birds usually hide in the bushes when it's this windy. Keep a low profile so they don't get blown away. I can't find any animals.
Oh dear, Ellie.
What's happening to you?
Okay, well, yeah, Ellie was, she's upset with Tristan calling us mischievous in the tent.
Come
I'm
on.
hearing those frogs. That was fascinating. Wonderful, different
Give us a quiz.
frogs here. We can hear the banded rubber frogs all around us at the moment. They are calling. There's a cacophony
Gotta go.
of banded rubber frogs. A lot of big words for the morning. I apologize. I don't know what happened.
Just throw in some Latin in there and then we're sorted for the day. Our brains will be finished.
Blackback jackal is our next
Canis
word
misomilas.
from Gemma. Blackback jackal.
I got nothing.
Oh,
Oh, I got one. But isn't that a family name? But I think I know which one, but I think it's
Oh dear, I've got no clue.
tell us the word.
Dota. So the word was Folidota, is that correct?
yeah, we don't want you to see it.
Anteater. Well, the
Oh, no.
pangolin.
Okay, wait, give me 2 seconds. Folidota.
Let's see.
Folidota.
Come on.
I'm going by a hunch here, I'm not too sure. I think pangolin.
Gotcha.
I don't know. Well,
I hope so. Alright.
we're ready for our last word.
Last one from Cindy. Latin name, let's see.
Tell us.
Oh, okay, bird of prey.
Hmm?
No clue.
Tell
What
us.
is it again?
Polymatus?
Poliomatus.
Polymatus.
Poliomatus bellicosus.
Bellicosus.
Marshall eagle. Marshall. Marshall eagle.
Okay, that's a tough one. Kirst said she'll give us a clue. It's a bird of prey, so that's very difficult.
Should we just... I'm just gonna go.
Poliomatus bellicosus. Marshall eagle. You see, most of the time when we tell you about
Yeah,
eagles,
for this one. This one, maybe?
we say that they've got feathered legs, etc.
Right, there we go.
But-
the eagle.
But true eagles
I'm right, yes.
are in the Aquila genus,
Well done, Byron. Well done.
not the Poliomatus. So it's not really a true eagle if you want to be
Marshall eagle. Is it
Marshall. It's not really a true eagle if you want to be taxonomically accurate.
Can you say
There's not that many Aquila eagles, so
everyday language?
a lot of them have been moved from Aquila. Aquila used to be what we call a wastebasket taxa, where we would just throw a lot of things that we all thought were eagles into the same genus. But now a lot of genetic studies have been done where we've moved them. I'm on the way from Port Nolloth to Cleanseer along the coast. Just wonder if you can see this, the color of the sand. So this reddish sand is a lot different to the sand we saw earlier. It's got a lot of iron in it, so it's basically rusted. And it's kind of a constant reminder that we're not that far away from the Kalahari Desert. This kind of reddish sands are pretty much what the Kalahari is made out of. Big spacious rooms, excellent views, but not great Wi-Fi. I wonder if you'll find it on TripAdvisor.